Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you, my dear?
I'm doing well.
Good.
We have both been a little bit under the weather this past
Yes,
week,
absolutely.
but we're here, we're doing it, persevering.
We are persevering, even though I look like Broomhilda today, or
No, you do
maybe
not.
more
You
than
look
I
like
think, but
my
you
whole
know,
face is
just
so swollen. Can you see my eyes? No, I'm just kidding.
I know that's what I'm like. There they are. Oh my gosh, where'd they go? I know what you mean. Totally get you.
We're out
Happy
here doing our
flu
best.
season.
Well, and we live in Texas, right? So we get to have so much fun with the 32, and then
Yes,
in the day it's 68.
yes.
And then we're
Oh my,
back down to 41 by 5 p.m. I'm just
sounds
like,
like
dude,
my
what are we
body
doing?
sizes.
Stop it.
But it's
And
true. Oh my gosh. Yes.
when it sucks I really like being on my like fitness stuff and doing things, and it makes me not want to move, and then I develop a lot of guilt and shame about, well, you should be at the gym or you should be doing this, or
Makes it
so
hard.
I really, and it's that weird underlying like, don't want to go outside because what if I get sick? I don't know, maybe I'm just being
No,
hypochondriatic, but
I totally get it. Oh my gosh, we're probably the only state that has a pair of sneakers, a pair of sandals, and a pair of boots outside our front door before we leave. We have to pick eeny, meeny, miny, mo what day it's going to be.
and about 4 hours later we realize we picked wrong.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
We
We're
can't
walking
do
around
it
in
well.
sandals, and yeah, I love it. Yep,
Well,
welcome to
but
Texas.
we are officially it's our first one in December,
It is our
which is
first
really
one in
exciting.
December. I love it. And
Yeah.
I love the fact that we're having a nice, bright, sunshiny day. So
Mm-hmm.
when you see all of the gold around me, yes, it is part of my halo, as you can imagine. It
Just
is the
from the
season to
corner,
have one.
you hear "Be not afraid."
Yeah, to be not afraid. And maybe
You're
it'll
like, no, it's
deter
actually a
you.
visitation.
That's right. It'll deter you from seeing the mess behind me. Yes, 'tis the season to be messy, trying to get things situated for the holidays.
Oh, I'm so excited. I was thinking, we're in a weird economy this year, and then on top of that, there's been so much uncertainty around connection
Yes,
almost. So it's been interesting to see how people have been responding to, like, Thanksgiving was one thing because it's not really that intense, I think. But
right.
at Christmas, I've just kind of been, nobody seems, tell me what you think. It doesn't seem like people are that into it this year.
Well, yes and no. I'm seeing it from both sides. I am
Mm,
seeing, again, there's a subset of folks that are kind of like in the blahs, just feeling a
mm.
little ho hum. But I do see
Ho
some
hum.
that are ho hum instead of ho ho, they're hum ho hum, bah hum bah ho. That's right. But
I
I
love
do
it.
see a pretty good blend from my
Yeah.
perspective. I'm seeing a blend of people just kind of getting situated for the holidays. I think what you're also seeing is that a lot of people, Sophia, are exhausted. And so their enthusiasm isn't being so easily read on their face, on their energy, because they're exhausted. And I don't feel that anyone is going through, there's not a pandemic obviously around us, and there's not a huge influx of flu just yet, even though some of us have been dealing with it. But I feel like people in general are just kind of fatigued. They're a little bit spent when it comes to
Hmm.
energy.
Do you think that's a collective thing, or do you think that it's more of like a DFW thing?
Now, I get the notion, the feeling it's kind of a collective thing.
Hmm.
And then again, adding in what you had said about the different temperatures and the weird jerky
Yeah.
weather that we've got, it kind of adds to all of the feel of a little bit under the weather.
I wonder too, this just popped in my head, so I'm going to say it. I haven't thought about this at all. But there's been a lot of seismic energy everywhere,
Yep,
and a lot of
that's
animals are
true.
acting kind of weird. So
Yep.
it makes sense that we would be picking up on some of that and maybe acting weird too.
Well, and that does make a lot of sense, because aren't we just two-legged animals, really?
Yeah, and we should be. I mean, dang, if the sheep can start spinning in circles, we can act weird for a
Exactly.
day.
I mean, even right. And as two-legged animals, some of us are a little bit more intelligent than most animals, but not all. But
Yeah, well, right. Well, we might assign reasons for it. I've been trying to be
yes,
good about that. Is just like It's okay to just feel meh. You don't have to go dig and
Yes,
find
it
out
is.
why.
Yes.
But that's hard
And
because you know I'm a thinker.
well, and I know, and I'm in one of those kind of fun, playful, weird moods today. So if you hear me
Yeah.
say something out of turn to the listeners out there,
Let's
my
do it.
apologies in advance. Kumbaya, love you all. There we go. Okay, so getting back to that, well, and I do feel that there is an intensity of an emotion, and I say of an emotion, and sometimes that emotion is just it kind of encompasses a lot of different feelings within it. But it's a feeling of being like, I don't want to cooperate. I don't want to play nice
Mm,
in the world. I don't want to play with society right now. I don't want to be, cheerful and triumphant. I want to sit back and not have those emotions
that's
that
so accurate for me
and it
personally.
happens. It does happen, right? We can't all be singing jingle bells right now,
True.
unless you want to, and that's behind the buildings later tonight. But it goes really into a nice segue, Sophia, of this is the holiday season. And there's expectations, some maybe that are outlandish or inappropriate, but there are expectations. I mean, I know there are plenty of us out there, not so much with me, because most of my troublemakers are in the spirit world, so I'm not having dinner with them on Christmas.
True, true, true.
But we
I love
recognize
that we
that
call them troublemakers.
the troublemakers. So we recognize that there are a lot of those out there, a lot of our colleagues, our friends, our community that have to make hard decisions. They're going to be with loved ones that they haven't gotten along with, or they haven't seen all year, or they're not sure they want to see at all, or they miss them terribly. And now this is just going to kind of reopen the wound of, oh my gosh, I miss them too much. I won't see them again for a while. So there's just a lot of emotions that we kind of bring out of the closet. We drag out, just like our holiday decorations. We bring
Mm-hmm.
out all the emotions that come along with the spirit, with the holiday
Mm-hmm.
time. And I see that in my clients. I hear it. I just recently had a phone reading, and it was about, I'm far, far away. I have an odd family, and I don't want to go there for the holidays. I just want to sit and basically reclaim my space. She's
Mm-hmm.
recently moved, and I said, well, what's the problem? What is that you're afraid of? She said, well, I'm
Mm-hmm.
and the expectations of having to play nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there are a lot of people out there, again, full circle of the wagon. We know that the expectations around this time of year are quite significant. And so, I know that I'm not going to tell you not to follow your thoughts, or tell you to go see those relatives or not go see those relatives. It is something you have to decide for yourself. But there's a lot to think about right now.
Well, I was thinking about this as you were talking. I feel that with being part of your family, we have the luxury where I've spent now several holidays with you, and there isn't a version of that experience where there's a critical eye on anybody or anything. Like,
That's
even to the
important.
point where, like, do you remember when Taylor was lathing in the garage, and your husband was getting a little bit nervous about it, and you're just like, hey, it's gonna be fine. You know what I mean? And my original family, every moment of any time around the holiday was this like false sense of perfection, and this
Right.
underlying, like, if you do something like that, I may not address it right now, but the moment the midnight occurs and it's no longer Christmas type thing. And that was very interesting when I was first observing you with your family, is everyone genuinely is just like, oh, if you drop it, you drop it. If you if you overcook something, you overcook it. Like, there's not I realize that a lot of people don't really have that. And I think that I'm very grateful with the way that you are, the way that your heart is with things of that nature, because I think a lot of people don't experience that.
Well, and I agree, and I'm grateful to be able to be that way based on, again,
It's calming.
it is calming. And I was, obviously I know what you mean about the expectations, and things could go sideways pretty swift.
Yeah.
But we
No
recognize
grapefruits, please.
no. Well, and I'll step back in time for a moment, and then I'll move back forward. In my upbringing, oh my God, Christmas, I'll tell you, my entire feeling of Christmas stems from my childhood. And
Mm,
in a good way. It's the only good memory I have. because, we always had a lot to eat on Christmas. My mom had lots of sweets that she would put out. So
Mm.
I had a great opportunity to gorge myself, and get all the sweets that I could while I had them available to me. And then a big meal. And the only time we got gifts was the holiday, the Christmas season. So it would preface everything that came about in sequence. First was started by the Christmas Eve beating, which my mother always
God.
got. So if we could live through instead of nightly mass, we had the nightly massacre. So
Oh my gosh.
instead of the Christmas Eve mass, I mean, I know I make light of it now because I've had several years to mourn it.
Right.
But, Christmas Eve came with a beating, and then we would listen to that, and then it would go quiet to probably about 1 a.m. And then Christmas morning was magical. Oh my gosh. We had a whole different family. It was really quite
Weird.
profound. We would get up early. We weren't allowed to open presents till the afternoon, late afternoon.
Oh, so you had them. I didn't even know if that would be a
Which we had,
component.
right. And I was happy for that because it gave me eye candy for most of the day. So we had lots and gobs of presents everywhere. I mean, it was incredible. And we got to see the tree lit once, and that was
Oh
on
my
Christmas
goodness.
for a short period of time. Because remember, I mean, it was also, the presents were mountainous around it. And, again, these were not expensive presents. There's, the dollar store is the dollar store. But lots and lots of presents.
Many dollars.
And many dollars. So lunch came at noon, a big feast, and then clean up, and then presents. And then by 3 to 4, we'd go back into the reality of we lived in a very dysfunctional family and a dysfunctional home. So those that didn't live in the house anymore would scurry off, and don't blame them. I always hated that when I finally got to see that they were all alive.
Oh, so there were a lot of people there.
Well, it was just the immediate family, but the grandma and the aunt would come over.
Oh wow. So I didn't realize that. So they're just everyone's pretending.
Right, everyone pretends. Yes. And so because by 3 or 4 there was another round of alcoholism and drunkardness, and another round of fighting.
Mm-hmm.
But by then I had all my gifts and my belly was full, and I could sneak off to the bedroom for a bit.
Yep.
Merry Christmas. That was real.
Yeah.
And I know people are looking at that or hearing that, and they're thinking, my God, that's your fond memory? And well, yeah, that is my fond memory, actually. So I absolutely love Christmas. I absolutely adore Christmas. We have since we forgo the Christmas mass, which was the massacre. We don't do that anymore. In my family, we have a nice peaceful dinner out usually on Christmas Eve. And then we have a nice Christmas day. And we don't sweat the small stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because sweating the small stuff just causes, undue duress and problems for everybody.
True.
So going back to what you said, no, we don't sweat the small stuff.
I really appreciate that. I think it's one of the, I can just roll. Well, the other day I was over there and I just didn't feel like dressing like anything. So I didn't.
I love that. That was so fun.
I was so comfortable though.
There she is.
But, I wonder too about sort of when there is sort of a miscalibration if we do, no matter what it is, whether you're going home for the holidays and maybe there's a lot of love there, but just everyone's uptight, or maybe there's nosiness around or anything like that sort of. And so we do sort of pretend, because it does make sense on some level. If you don't see these people for the entire year, you're not really going to die on a particular hill, most likely. Because you've got a whole weekend that you kind of need to budget for and sacrifice towards it being positive. But that can sometimes really miscalibrate you after the fact. So what would you say to people who kind of have to, almost like the aftercare of a holiday?
And that's a really good question. And that's a difficult one to answer because, again, we are very different in the way we perceive things, in the way we accept things, in the way we can process things. Oftentimes, and again, I can't tell you that you need to be resilient and strong and tough when you're not feeling that way, because that's not a good thing for me to say to you. But I will tell you that sometimes, and we'll look at it from just a lighter answer. Sometimes these moments of family time is what gives us a little bit of chuckles later. Mm-hmm. I mean, we all have that Uncle Freddie. Right? That we always, the proverbial Uncle Freddie that we've had to sit near or be around, who's obnoxious, falls asleep while we're trying to, eat dinner. So sometimes memories that seem very disturbing at the time actually later can be something that are a little bit more cherishable.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes we have to endure a little bit to get a little bit later. Okay. But I also believe that if you have a traumatic situation and it's not really anything in your best interest to go and to be part of, then sit it out. But when you sit it out, and this is where I always try to help people, this is where I kind of catch them, is on this side of that question and this answer. If you choose to sit it out, what are you doing with that time?
Mm-hmm.
If you choose not to go home for the holidays,
Mm-hmm.
if you choose not to go down the street because you just had a fight with your sister and you're not going to go and you don't feel that you can make amends for 2 hours for dinner, whatever it may be, what are you doing after that decision? Are you
Interesting point.
sitting home punishing yourself? Are you crawled up on the floor crying because you should have or could have or don't know what you needed to do?
Mm-hmm.
If you make a decision, be bold, keep it, honor it. You're still you. You still have a day to either live through, celebrate, or whatever it is, but try to make it the best day for you. Otherwise, you're just basically giving yourself even more punishment.
Oh my
And I
gosh, yeah.
hear that from people, and it just breaks my heart. Well, I decided not to go home for the holidays. And I'm like, what did you do to replace that? Nothing. I sat home and I had pizza and didn't do anything. And I would say to them, in the past conversations that I've had, well, did that make you happy? Was that a good choice for you? Well, it was the only thing I could do. Well, I don't see that necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're going to make a decision to forego an outing around the time of the holiday, be mindful of that. Don't punish yourself continuous for the whole day and at midnight go, phew, glad that's over, go to bed tomorrow, I'll be a happy person. Make it a happy day with you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other thing is, and we've all done this, I think, that feeling when you're very emotional and you're just like, well, I'm not going then. And then maybe 3 hours later, you're thinking, I really wish I hadn't said that final thing. I would like to take it back. And this is more for if you're in proximity, right?
Yes.
And, I do think that there is room and encouragement for just calling people and saying, hey, I was very nervous about everybody. I was anxious.
Yes.
There's part of me that doesn't like being around groups in this way, but I do want to come and I'm sorry. I'm bringing casserole. You know what I mean? And
I love it.
because we don't have to. I hate that feeling when you're a kid and you do that and you just die on it because your pride is there.
Yep.
And we still do that as adults sometimes.
We still do that as adults. Well, because that's something we have taught ourselves. That that when we make these quick judgment calls, that there's no going back. Or we know that if we go back, maybe on the other side, there's punitive responses. Again, just because we do the right thing doesn't mean the answer in return is going to be as what we need. There's a lot of manipulation in families, and there's a lot of manipulations in friends and colleagues and you name it. I mean, we're a manipulative world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that we necessarily hopefully don't intend to be that. I mean, I wouldn't suggest that you make that your your calling as you're making your New Year's resolutions,
right.
Change. But we recognize that there are those that, take that, I'm so sorry, I had misguided judgment for a moment, and they take it and they use it to make you feel worse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, you know how your mother is now. She's now in bed crying because of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, well, let's just get the ball rolling here and make it even more fun, So
cool.
it takes really collaboration.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to that.
I remember, and this was obviously a long time ago, but I remember there was a year, my brother was at Texas Tech, and my mom arbitrarily decided that she didn't want him home for Thanksgiving. But then she conveniently forgot that that was her idea and blamed it on my dad and I that he didn't come home. And we were just like, dude, we didn't say that. We don't, first of all, none of us have the legislative power in this house. You are the only one who can do that. And I just remember thinking, like, she hated that decision. And she regretted it because he can't just arbitrarily show up from El
No.
Paso.
No,
Or
exactly.
Lubbock, my bad, even, right? And I just remember, nobody really knew what to do with that from the pride perspective. Because even my brother, even if he'd been able to, probably wouldn't have. Because now
Right.
he's mad. You know what I mean? I
Well,
just
sure,
remember
I would have
thinking,
been
like,
mad as well.
well, yeah. I mean, but it's just one of those things where it's like, a lot of that, you can't take it back. That happened a lot, I think, within my home. And so I haven't always been that way. I'm very quick to say, I messed up. I'm sorry. I just got emotional. Like, I'm more quick to try and recoup what I can of an experience if I messed it
Right.
up.
Right.
Hopefully. Not always. I'm not always great about it. My pride can be very monumental sometimes.
We do learn from our experiences. We learn from our early experiences, and sometimes we have to take a look and go, okay, we examine, is that the response I want to have forward? Is that a healthy response, or is that a poor response? For me, I mean, I've always been a bit different than my other siblings. I've always been precocious and a little mouthy. I know I got slapped many times because my mouth was in motion when it should have been quiet. And so, but more often than not, I mean, in an instance of someone dropping something from the dinner table, everyone would have been hush hush and kind of looking at each other to see what type of fireworks would happen. Would there be, all of a sudden my father feeling he needed to drink, 3 shots to demand perfection, or would it just be forgotten and forgiven?
Well,
And
everyone's
so,
eyes go to the decision maker to
right,
decide how everyone else is going to act. That's
exactly.
how it always is.
And so we learn from those experiences. And, I'll tell you, when I was in my early teens, and that was quite a while ago, at least 10 years ago. And so in my early teens, what I recognized was anytime I did anything wrong, I was the town crier. So I dropped something. I don't think I broke it, but I'm going to pick it up. I think I've got water on the floor. I'm going to go get a napkin.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get it resolved and solved before anyone made any decision about anything.
I relate. That's crazy. I relate to that very, very aggressively.
And now what I've learned is that there has to be a balance.
Yes.
Right? And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes my first reaction is, oh no, I'm so sorry. Who am I saying I'm sorry to?
Right.
I'm the one that's going to clean it up in a minute anyway.
That's a perfect point.
So we do sometimes have to do a self-test, self-check to see if our responses are ancient, if our responses come from other Christmases, other Thanksgivings, other holidays, and it's triggered by family. So again, you're not going to base your entire existence or your entire future on a singular day.
No.
But I do know that there are many people, when they go home for Christmas, are there for 3 or 4 days. Because all of a sudden now, their plane lands at the gate, and their return tickets not until the end of the weekend.
Yeah.
And that's a frightful thing for some people who are unsure about how it's going to go being in the family home. If you're one of those folks, I'm a firm believer in having a backup plan. But when you have a backup plan, don't wield it like a iron fist. Don't use it against the potential for things to be okay. Right. If you have, if you're staying with mom and dad, but you get along well with your brother, and if things get chaotic at home, you're going to go stay with him. Well, don't give all your data when you first arrive, right?
Right.
Don't use your threats like that. Don't tell people if they don't behave, you have other plans.
Oh, Lord, yeah.
Because I've seen people do that too.
Even just talking about this stuff, it's relieving, I guess, on some level that just isn't a reality for me or really for you. But that is so real for so many people.
It is.
Like, you got like a cousin over there somewhere saying, if it's not perfect, I'm leaving. Like, I can only imagine how annoying and how stressful some of these things could be. I'm sure there's also really wonderful, gatherings, but we recognize there's a lot of people that go to jail over the holidays.
There are.
That's a real thing.
It is a real thing. It is. And unless you like that type of entertainment, once it happens once, you're best to stay away. Do a video
Yeah.
chat. Get your own turkey or your own ham. Because sometimes there's just not a place for you at a table that's violent. And it's
No.
okay to be okay. It's okay to save yourself from a situation where even though it is the one time a year, that you've experienced on such a level that that's why you've been in therapy for 10 years.
God.
And
Yeah.
maybe it's still not ready for you to come out, or maybe you don't need to be there, period.
You know, it's probably bad when you look at somebody and all you see is a price tag of how much they've cost you in therapy.
Well, it happens. It truly happens. I have several clients that I've already talked to for the calendar year, month of December. And their question is, will I get along with my family if I go home for the holidays?
That's a funny question.
It is a funny
Because there should be some
question.
data to back up a projected future.
Well, again, as an intuitive in our guides, sometimes we're like, okay, well, if you have to ask me that, chances are you already know the answer is no. Or you've talked yourself into a slanted version of what it really is. So we have to kind of go in it from a couple different angles to look at it intuitively. But I've had people that are already, they're not worried about the frenzy and the expense or the traffic, or they're more worried about the singular act of being with family.
Mm-hmm.
And how horrible. I mean, we all do it. I mean, we live in a collective society. We live in a society where we grow and know each lifetime. That's why we keep doing it over and over. But just think about it. Our biggest fear and worry is our family for the holiday. That's a really sad thought in a lot of ways. In a perfect world, that would be our savior. That would be our security. But
Yeah.
not often is the case.
Well, it's definitely something to be said for. There's certainly a lot of. I was thinking about this the other day while I was biking. I was thinking, we are so used to spreading away from our parents pretty early.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of other cultures where they won't move out of their region until their parents pass, or they won't do certain things. That doesn't really exist in the Western culture too much.
Not as
And
much.
now I was thinking about how expensive everything is. So we're going to go more and more and more into a timeline where people can't afford to see each other, even
Right.
if they wanted to, or it's going to turn into a really, really easy excuse to not have to, which is fair. I mean, like if you need something to say, that's definitely plane tickets is one reason, but it's just we're
Yes.
getting more and more spread out.
We are getting more and more spread out. And there's something too, and I was thinking about this the other day. As we continue to grow electronically into our existence, into our world, we have to be mindful that we don't become so sterile into it that we forget that people are best in front of us when it comes to occasions.
Mm-hmm.
I know that greeting cards and Christmas cards are a bit old fashioned, and so I'm told. So we're going to stick with that. They're a bit old fashioned because why would you waste a stamp, ink, and an effort when all you have to do is send one message and attach it to everyone you know on your list.
Mm-hmm.
So 1,000 Facebook friends of mine, of course. I know them all individually. I do. Yes, I'm friends with their kids too. And so they will all get the same Christmas card and joyful and triumphant because Terri spent 30 seconds to wish them all
Yeah.
well.
Yep.
So going back to the card, I still send out Christmas cards. If you don't get one,
I
it's
love
because
them.
you don't give me one. And not you, not Sophia. I'm not saying that way.
No, I know.
But I've noticed that from 80 to 60 to 40 to this past year, 18 cards. And I thought, it's interesting because we become such an electronic world that we have forgotten the value of sitting down for a moment and putting energy towards a simple Christmas card.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I used to draw Ivy in all of them. My red pen and my green pen were non-existent. I couldn't find them this year. But so I didn't do it. And that was almost painful for me because they didn't look like they've looked for the last 30 years. But again, and I know that's simple and silly to some of you, and some of you all are going, what's a Christmas card? But but it's a way for us to connect to
Mhm.
those that we do care about for the holidays. And we see that as time and time goes on, based on what you just said, there's a very strong likelihood that instead of sitting at the dinner table, we're going to be sitting on a video chat.
Mm.
And we're going
Yeah.
to accept that video chat as the first line of communication
Mm-mm.
rather than the last line of communication because we don't have a way of getting there.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And so I'm grateful for video chat. I'm grateful for the experience. But if I'm talking to someone who lives, 15 minutes away on
Oh,
video
goodness, yeah.
chat,
No,
who
that's
would have
not
been at
cool.
the dinner table, then am I really getting what should be, could be? And with that said, maybe that's the best the other person can do. If you have a very difficult inflammatory situation, maybe you know that your in-laws are going to fight with you.
Mm.
Put down your cooking and put down your children, which are their grandchildren. You know that you're in for a mess. I could see why you would want a video chat with those kind of people. But we do have to be mindful that that doesn't become the primary way.
Mhm. Man, that's so hard. Like, to put those 2 things together is hard for me logically because I don't have kids. But if I did and I was somewhere where they were being bludgeoned for
Hmm.
any number of reasons, it'd be really challenging for me to wanna be at that dinner table. But then again,
Absolutely.
they technically have a
Absolutely.
right to their grandparents, even if they're not great-grandparents.
Right.
Oh, it's so complicated. That's a
It is
complicated thought.
complicated. And really, in the end, there's really no easy, simple answer. There's no quick fix. Sometimes we have to kind of go with the flow, the experience, just because it's the one time a year that we have to endure it.
Mhm.
And we're tougher than that.
Mhm.
We build up a level of resistance and resilience. For me, what was funny on my first marriage, and I just chuckle about this. I could have been really angry and frustrated, but I chuckled about it, which made it a lot more palatable for me to deal with from year to year, right?
Mhm.
When my in-laws,
Perspective.
yes, my in-laws would come over to celebrate the holiday. They would enjoy a big meal because I prepare a big meal,
And it's
and they
delicious.
would immediately, I mean, without any care of picking up a dish, a plate, or a knife or a fork to put back in the kitchen, they would leave their plates just as they were, go in the living room, and fight over who was going to spread out on the furniture.
Oh, boy.
And so I would finish, and it was fine. And because I got some quiet time, except at the time I had a small child, and the child wasn't being watched by him either, because that they were
Mhm.
trying to take a nap. Okay.
'Cause it's so much
And
work to eat.
absolutely. And so I'd get done 2 hour cleanup and I'd come out and everyone would be sleeping on the sofa. So I would sit on the floor. And after a while, I thought, okay, looking around in every chair and every sofa, we had a couple sofas. They were all very much packed by, one person would take a whole sofa and another person would take a whole sofa. And there wasn't any place to sit. My point was, at first I would sit on the floor and go, woe is me. Here I am. I'm the only one awake and the only one working, and everyone is, sleeping on my furniture. And then I thought, okay, well, now I can be a victim, or I could take this experience. I'm not going to kick them off and go find something to do instead.
Mm.
So what I found that as I would experience that, I would go do something else. I'd go upstairs, or I'd go and take, my son outside when he was little, and we'd walk around, and I would not partake in that. And I remember it
Mhm.
was so funny because I heard one of my sister-in-law, in fact, say, "Where did you go? We thought you were going to be here to visit with us." And I said, well, there wasn't any place for me to sit. So I decided to go for a walk.
Yep. Was there any knowingness with that statement?
It's funny. Not a thing.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
And so again, we all have situations where may not be perfect, may not be ideal for us. We can't write the perfect Hallmark card because we're dealing with personalities, right?
Mhm.
So endure what you can endure. Do something different if you can do that successfully to make yourself happy. And if it's just going to be a miserable event, either decide not to do it again next year or decide that 2 hours of your life or 4 hours of your life, you're going to have some very interesting memories to talk about later.
And there's always more wine. No, I'm just kidding.
And there's
I'm just
always
kidding.
more wine.
That's how you
That's
get into
funny.
the jail part. No.
Yeah, that's right. That's where we get to the jail part. That's funny. Oh my gosh. That is
No, no
hilarious.
jail. I'm curious for you about from the spiritual perspective of, because we know we were kind of talking about this over Thanksgiving, but we know that within our energy houses those that we think about, and then sometimes somebody who's thinking about us can wind up in our energy. And then that can sort of just manifest as like a wispy thought or a concern out of nowhere about somebody. And what would you say sort of to either the defense against that as far as like energetic hygiene during the holidays, or sort of how do you just stay in your own melody throughout some of that?
So let me make sure I understand the question completely. So the energy that is now kind of ramped up within your environment is what you're saying? And
Yeah,
how to
like if your parents were still with us and they were stewing up in New York, you would probably get a glimpse of that, but not really. But because you have such good spiritual hygiene, there's a very good chance you wouldn't feel it at all. But I think a lot of people deal with that, especially if they're estranged or especially if they're not around the people and somebody is mad that they're not,
Right.
or upset that you're not where you want to be. So you're sending your energy out. So,
Sure.
like, how do we navigate that a little bit?
Well, we change the environment a bit. We go ahead and we put on some cinnamon and cloves and rosemary and we make some pretty good tea that way or cider that way on the back burner. Or we could just burn it for the aroma and clearing effects.
Mm-hmm.
We can satisfy some of that by just simply using the techniques that we would use on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
Again, creating, the essential oils of our own, right? The holiday scents to kind of alleviate any negative vibrational feeling,
Mm-hmm.
energy. We know that making noise creates, again, a clearing. So
Mm-hmm.
clapping and adding a little festivity of sound, whether it be, jingle bells or Led Zeppelin, just putting a little sound into the room will help. Okay. Sometimes we have to decide if that feeling is in our residence or that feeling is inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
So if it feels like it's more heavy than it should be, take a walk, go outside.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel better, that's a good thing. That means it's probably your environment rather than you. But if you go for a walk and you still have the same misery, even if it's a walk to the mailbox, chances are it's in you instead of in the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me for this cough. It's been a long week of coughing. But there isn't a one and done answer for that. And
Mm-hmm.
it is easy to bring in emotions. We do
Mm-hmm.
it all the time. I mean, we do that in a good sense too. We lose our mother during this the
Mm-hmm.
spring, and Christmas rolls around, which would have been her time to cook and her favorite time.
Mm-hmm.
And say,
Yeah,
for instance,
bereavement.
her daughter's taken over, perhaps, so that family has a place to land, and the emotion is heavy
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of undealt with emotions or unhealed emotions. And so we know from that perspective that we have a likelihood of that feeling of loss, which is never a happy-go-lucky feeling.
No.
So depending on, again, if it's negative energy and you don't want them there, shoo them away, right? Like if my parents showed up at my dinner table, first I'd be shocked because they're not
Right.
allowed.
No, right.
And I would probably reprimand my guides first and foremost. Like, excuse me, I Brutus, what is that about? You know what I mean? But if it's someone that I cherish and miss and love, then I'm going to feel sorrow. And that heaviness of sorrow sometimes is hard to, untwist and unwind from, a dark feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I have people that, and I talk to their loved ones all the time. I mean, it's one of my favorite things to do now is mediumship because I do it all the time. And so it's a good thing, I guess. They're saying, don't forget me at the table. I may not, be able to eat much, but if there's still a chair, don't feel bad that it's empty because I'll be there.
I love that. Yeah.
And I have told several people already because and I always tell loved ones from the other side, if this is going to be about the holidays, I get it, but put something else in it too to sustain them from the rest of the time. Because I don't want every reading from a loved one to be about the cranberry sauce.
I see. Yeah,
You
yeah.
see what I mean?
Yes.
Because it just kind of doesn't satisfy on a long term. It just makes them more
Correct.
nostalgic.
Yes.
And so when I do talk to people, they will often come around full circle before the end of the session and say, I'll be there. I'll be at the table. Don't be afraid. I will be at the table. And so it's really, and that brings tears to my eyes because I know several of my clients that do that traditionally now. They keep a place for that loved one who's no longer there. Well, and I hear that more than one would expect.
I love that.
And so, I've had some that say, oh my gosh, well, we have so many people come over now, I don't have room. I'm like, it's okay. You have another chair somewhere. Just say, listen, this is for you, Mom. Just know that they're going to be there anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But it is hard. The energy and the feel of the environment, the residence can be heavy from loss and grief, or heavy from worry or stress, or again, turmoil. But we are the creators of our day. And I'm a firm believer of that. We can't get out of our own way is the most dangerous place to reside.
Oh, that's so true. Because no one's going to be invested in us having a good day more than we will. It's not really anyone's job to, A, maybe, but B, it's just not really going to happen. I was thinking about that the other day. I was thinking, when you do self-advocate, 9 times out of 10, it's the only one who's going to be doing it,
Well, that's exactly
how it is.
Right.
And that's probably good and probably bad, or not. I don't think it's good or bad. Maybe it's more just, it's a good reason to recall that if you wake up, I kind of had to tell myself this the other day, where it's like, if you wake up 3 days in a row and you're just not feeling like anything, well, now it's time to step in. Like, we got to do something about that.
Right.
And I do feel strongly because there's, on the one hand, it's, you can rest, and this is kind of the closing of a year anyway. This is astrologically the most dead zone of time.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we really are not intended to be particularly boisterous of energy at this time. The whole earth physically isn't. Why would, you know what I mean? But it's like, in the season of that, we still have a responsibility to maintain some, I guess maybe even just a desire to be well. If it's not working out, if the weather's crazy and you're just tired. And that's hard to remember sometimes. I mean, like, everyone wants to say, oh, I'm going to get it done every time and I'll be on time to everything and doing everything right. But God, it's cool to just say, okay, the holidays, let's just rest. Let's get to January 1st together.
Yes. And that happens, and that's okay. I've spent those Christmases, after I left, ran away, basically. I escaped, that's right. I know the feeling of being just kind of like, okay, what do I do now? And feeling sorry for myself. And woe is me. And oh, I have nothing. Well, I do have something. I have me.
Yeah.
I didn't leave me behind. I'm still here. And if I want to feel better, I have to take a responsibility to do my part. Now, I may not choose to feel better. I may choose to just wallow in my own self-pity for a while. And that's okay too. With certain, rules. Parameters that I don't stay there. This is a one and done for a bit, hopefully. But we realize that we do have, and this is the empowerment. It's such a remarkable life when we really kind of bring full circle that we do have a say in how we feel.
Oh, yeah.
That it's not just the circumstances that dictate our emotions. It's how we respond to the circumstances that change our emotions.
I think too, there's growth from, when you and I first met, I feel like in that time zone, which was we're rolling up on 5 years ago, 4 years ago, which is so cool. And I love you so much. I'm so
I
glad I
love
met
you
you.
so much.
I'm so glad you're in my life. But, I remember this now, and I give myself a hard time now in the here and now current moment. But 4 or 5 years ago, I was budgeting for benders, and I knew, okay, well, I'll have a week like this. And so then now it's like, I don't do that anymore. And so for me to have an off period of time, I need to remember you used to handle this a lot differently. And I'm kind of I need to be more proud of the fact that if it ever comes to a weird, awkward time,
Sure.
that, well, I'm not going crazy. You know what I mean? Or
No,
does that make sense? Like,
it makes perfect sense.
there's been growth.
Right. And taking care of oneself and stepping back from the world and the community for a bit to do so is perfectly healthy.
Yeah.
But when we use it as our only vice for change, then sometimes we find that it is not working, that it is not the healthiest decision. And it's easy to get in that situation where, it's the holidays. I have a right to be miserable. I have a right to gain
Right.
10 pounds and sit home and, cry into my wassail or whatever the heck I'm drinking, right?
Grab a
But
shovel, see if you can find rock bottom.
yeah,
Why not?
exactly.
Why not?
Bingo. I love that.
Where is it?
Oh my God, that's funny. I've got to remember that. There are plenty of people I can share that with. I like that. Oh my
From
gosh.
experience, unfortunately.
That's funny. But really, we do have it within ourselves to make decisions, to make the choices. And the thing that I cringe when I hear people say, and I've said it, okay, I'm in the same boat as you and you and you and everyone else. We're all in some ways the same.
Oh, yeah.
I can't do anything about it. How many times have we said that? I can't do anything about it. And my first reaction to that is, that doesn't make any sense. First and foremost, you can do plenty about it because you get to change the way you think about it. And nobody can tell you otherwise. You can do plenty of things. You may have a situation that is out of your physical control. And if you know there's going to be a fight and the police will be called because that's just what your family does, what can you do about it? You can choose to leave an hour before it all breaks down. That's
You put a
one
Xanax
thing.
in everyone's drink. No, I'm just
Yes.
kidding.
Or change the eggnog to just shots of liquor. No, just kidding. But you do have something
We are
you
a
can do
criminal
about it.
podcast. No.
Right. Bringing out the shovel again, are we? No, just
Yeah,
kidding.
hey, man, listen.
But really, you do. When you say you have nothing you can do about it, is not correct. We live
No.
in such a fast-paced can-do world. Heck, you could be miserable at your relatives stuck without transportation and call Uber.
Yep.
Okay?
100%.
And walk around the block, hide behind a tree, and wait for your new ride.
Yeah.
There is so much we can do when you allow yourself to feel helpless. Not only do you do a disservice to yourself, but you also give yourself a very bad and big insult because you learn to feel that you're incapable of making choices.
Man. Well, oh God, that is the fear of making choices is
Yes.
prevalent right
It
now.
is.
And it's not,
It is.
honestly, how could anybody, after the pandemic, after the way things have kind of been with that level of uncertainty, nobody has ever seen anything like that before in their life. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
now I'm not like, not to play the victim of every generation, I feel like it gets struck with
Yes.
things, and so we had my age group, Taylor and I, we didn't really know what '01 was, but it was scary because we saw our parents be scared.
Right.
'08 happened. A lot of people's lifestyles changed.
Yes.
People lost their houses, families split up, and then we've got, I feel like there's something in between '08 and 2020 that was notable. 14, right, God. And they were long, no. But, well, and we've been in a consistent state of war. So
Yes, that's
there's a
true.
lot that has just, so I see in my generation a lack of commitment to the choices that they make, and I fear to make big choices.
Yep.
And I feel that everybody is just, and I feel this, so I speak for it as being, I'm not better. I feel this way so hard, but it's hard to perceive any real tangible future. And then I was reading about this, and that is legitimately a trauma response.
It is a trauma response. I've recently
I
read
didn't
something
know
similar.
that.
It's funny that you mentioned that. It
That
is.
is
It's a
weird.
trauma response.
And I have fought myself over what I perceive as a lack of accountability to a future I want, a lack of ability to play, like, and I couldn't figure out why is this so hard for me, because I can get about 5 steps ahead and then it's like a dark abyss and I can't feel anything about it. And I just couldn't figure out if that was an ADHD thing. And it seems to be like, well, there's a lot that's been going on that would make us wonder about if anything's going to work out ever.
Well, exactly. Right, right. It feels like you're walking down the plank, you know,
Man,
when you're making the decisions about the future. Sometimes it gets darker and darker as you're heading there
but you
because
must do it.
right, but you still must do it. And you're right. I'm 100% on board with this, and I really really just weep for our youth because again, the last 3 generations, it's going to be hard as hell to buy a home. And unless you have old money or you have a lot of inheritance.
Mm.
And I hope you all do. I'll tell you, you'll all be fighting with it now because you've got stepsisters and stepbrothers, and oh my God, I hear it every day of the week. But the bottom line is, it's a difficult task to own a home, even.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry, and I hate to throw that in the middle of all of the thickness of this, but it's true.
Mhm.
That's a realization. That's not just a, oh, poor me, I can't do this. We see that everything is so much more expensive
But
that
it's not even appealing
it's
to my
not right.
generation. And it's
Ex-
weird, like,
right. And again, what and I'm not saying I love tiny homes. Don't get me
I
wrong.
love
And I
them
know this is a
too.
whole different thing. I think they're so cute. I mean,
Yes.
Hansel and Gretel. No, not Hansel and Gretel. No, that's my house I grew up in. Never mind. But I do like tiny homes. But what I also have watched and witnessed is that there's a resolve now that if we can't have what we want, then we'll get whatever we can afford. And it's getting smaller and smaller. And pretty soon they're going to start dressing up the trunk of our cars, saying, look, you can put a bed in here. And we're
Yep.
going to be satisfied with it because we're going to feel that that's all we can get anymore. It's a mindset. And the mindset comes from economy. It
Mhm.
comes from, again, the just the social world we live in. And it just comes from sometimes just a feeling of, that we don't have it within us to create it. And that's frustrating to me to see that in the youth because it's there, it's real.
It almost feels too that, and I've thought about this, but this is not a reason I would go and become pregnant. But there's almost a feeling of, well, if you're just doing it for yourself, what's it all for? Whereas I
Right.
think I wonder sometimes
Yep.
if it really does come into focus when you have another human being relying on you, where you're like, well, I need to build a good future for them. I need to plan ahead in this regard, because it's
Yes.
so challenging to perceive life that way as an
It's
individual.
terribly challenging. It is. It's terribly challenging. And you're right. Sometimes we need a catalyst. We need something worth fighting for. Even though I mean we have that for ourselves on some level, obviously. It does sometimes get elevated when we're doing it for others. And
Mhm.
again, there's nothing wrong with being motivated to help others. Trust me, that's the good stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're right. And there's just so much, just oh gosh, I don't even know the word turmoil, so much just energy that hasn't landed yet, that's still kind of just up in the air. So people don't know which way to go. They don't know what they can have and what they can't have. They don't know what they should strive for or what they should give up on. And, why should anyone have to give up on anything, really? I mean, if you're
Mhm.
willing to put forth the effort and work hard to get it and create a place for you, then why shouldn't it be yours? And so I don't want to deter anyone from making dreams.
Well, I was going to ask, that's the word I was just thinking is, how do we keep people dreaming?
because sometimes it's the only thing that brings joy to life.
I was gonna
And I
say we're
don't mean
made
that
to.
to, yeah, I don't mean that to be dismal. I mean, it's curious. And I think my best way to answer that, and I'm not sure if this makes any sense to anyone but me. But so I'm going to throw it out there, and you can either think it's crazy
It's your
or not.
podcast. You get to say it.
Yes, that's right.
That's right.
Damn it.
We could just be up here talking. It's our
Right.
stuff.
I mean, I've come from, where the shovel was, the rock bottom,
Yeah.
where a mustard sandwich was the best ever. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, I know people would scoff at that and think, oh my God, that's just horrible. There's nothing there but mustard. When you're hungry, a mustard sandwich is the best piece of cake you've ever had in your whole life.
Oh, I
Okay.
bet.
I've walked 5 miles to get to work. I've stood in bad neighborhoods to get from work, home. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some things I don't ever want anyone to see ever. I know they exist and I've been there. Okay. But I also know on the flip side of that coin, there's beautiful things. There's things that we could all strive for. I may never live in a mansion. I may never have the 3-car garage. I may never have, I don't know, the lakefront property. But what I do know is that I also find balance and joy in what I do succeed to have.
Yes.
And that is important. And it's kind of a mixed bag too, because it goes right hand in hand with what I've said about everyone be happy with your tiny homes because it's the only thing you can afford.
Right.
But the realism is happiness really isn't about the things on the other side of the eyeballs. Okay. Happiness comes from what's inside you. And you can find completion. You can find, success when you look at it from within rather than looking at it from what you have.
Well, that's so perfectly said, because it's what's on the other side of the eyeballs we can't always control. We can try, but we can't. I was telling my student last week, we were talking about sort of the way that we feed our body to keep ourselves going.
Yes.
But we don't feed our soul, or sometimes we lose track of even how to.
Right.
And that is something that I think maybe we can talk about next time. But that's sort of something where kind of figuring out again what it is that will make you feel like your rest time was restful, like that it did something for you, that it recharged you in some meaningful way.
Yes.
Because that's hard.
It is
especially
hard.
If you've lost track of what that might be per se.
Yes.
Maybe because a parent said, oh, you shouldn't do that anymore, but you used to draw a lot. Or an ex told you this. Like we lose parts of ourselves in that way. Because mostly the things that feed our soul are those like childlike creative things that usually get shamed, unfortunately.
Oh, yes.
So we got to go find them again. And I had a thought the other day. I love these little well, they're not dumb, but they're online novels where anybody can just go in there and write what they want to write. And then if they get upvoted a lot, but they're just not really, they're not very deep, right?
Right.
I thought the other day, I was thinking, you just need to read. Like, you haven't done that in a minute. You enjoy doing it. It passes the time.
Yep.
And you like it.
Yes.
Don't forget to do that more. And I just was kind of like, okay, cool. I forgot. But yeah, that is what I need to do.
Right. We forget to self-soothe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really
without the
what
harsh
it is.
things.
Right.
Drugs and alcohol are always within reach, but that doesn't do much for the soul.
Exactly. Without the addictive side. Self-soothing is taking care of nurturing what we need in the moment and not using the time off just to wallow. It's okay to feel sorry for yourself. Go get it. Go jump right in both feet and hands too. Get that wallowing going on. Clear that. Purge that. Get that out of your system. But when you've done that, you need to come out of that and you need to replace it with satisfaction, joy, contentment, appreciation. I mean, how many of us daily say, this is me and I love me? These are my hands. They've gotten older and my nails are all chipped right now. They look horrible, but they're mine and they function and I love them.
Dang.
How many of us would instead go, oh my God, my hands are old. They're getting chubby and the nails are broken and I have no nail polish anymore because I've peeled it all off. So find a way to rebuild.
Oh, that's so true. And that's a position of gratitude.
Yes, it is.
I remember I was in therapy. My therapist is very aggressive, and I need it. She won't
Good.
let me lie to myself.
I love
And
it. I love it.
oh man, and I met her, or I met you through her, which
I
is
love
crazy.
it. It's a small world.
Of course, well, just guided on some level, right? But one time I was talking about the past with bulimia and the fact that I just sometimes don't feel great in my body. And I'm having this sob sort of like I just feel she immediately is like, well, that's pretty rude. And I was like, what do you mean that's rude? And she's like, was that not the body that makes you the money that you can have this cat in this house? And I'm just like, oh God, that's so true. And she was kind of went in on me. And she was saying like, for all this you're saying about your body, it does a lot for you.
Yeah.
And she said, and you don't look bad. So what do you like as far as you got lucky, essentially, she's saying. And I just was like, thank you. I do need that reminder because you can't, there's a lot of good, there's a lot to be grateful for. And it is interesting what a paradigm shift that can occur, that can cause.
Yes.
It's just not
Exactly.
intuitive if you want to be a victim.
Right.
Hard
You
to
have to
get there.
choose not to be a victim. And
Yeah.
again, we've had a lot of practice being victims. We've all had some form of trauma state, through life. You don't get to be, in a physical world and not have some form of trauma. There are very
Yeah.
few people that actually go through life with no issues. We all know of one, right? We all, can you believe it? They've never had loss. They've never lost money. But there's always something. We don't know what they're thinking inside. They may be wanting to commit suicide.
Absolutely.
You don't know what you don't know.
No, you don't. That's so true.
It is.
I don't know how this conversation got to where it was, but I feel it was needed for me, I think, but also I think collectively.
I agree. And I know it sounds cliche or bizarre, but really, it's kind of like it's our way of also giving you all a warm hug. This is a trying world we live in. It's not an easy world. Okay. This isn't, the school of life isn't on an easy basis. We're in the
There's no curve here,
AP
it doesn't seem like.
We're doing AP classes in life, okay?
Oh, Lord.
And yeah, there's no curve grades. There's just straight up what you do is what you get most of the time. And sometimes we don't equate what we do to how we got it. So
yeah, that's not good, bad, and
yes,
ugly.
Absolutely.
That's
but
hard.
It really is. Do your best, folks. There are a lot of hurting folks out there. We get a lot of them just because of what we do for a living. And I'll tell you, I never get tired of trying to help someone to see the other side, to see that there is good within them, that there's hope within them. When we lose hope, we pack it out. I mean, hope is really kind of like the glue to a good existence. You've got to remain hopeful on some level. And it's not the thing you want to extinguish.
No, but hope and faith have a lot of similar energy from the perspective of you can't ever really prove that what you're thinking or what you're hoping is going to occur will.
That's exactly right.
And you have to bear that weight of this could always end in disappointment. But it could always end in what you want.
That's exactly
well spoken. You got to take that gamble.
It is a gamble. Make life fun. If you know you're going to always, fall on your knees, what fun is that? Go and
it's
try
almost exhausting saying that because I'm not the most authentically hopeful. I can get jaded and I can get like God, but it is true. I know it's true. I just have to remember it sometimes and remember, hey, I'm the only one who's got active hands on this experience.
Yes. Take the power that you were given, that was prescribed to you in the first place. I know, I hear that too.
I don't want to do it anymore.
I know. Well, I remember many of those nights. I've had them too.
And obviously I don't mean it, but I want to say real quick, because I know I'm going to let you go here, but it's not because of money or anything. This was a personal choice, but you said mustard sandwich, and mine was always ketchup and Miracle Whip.
Oh, I love it.
And my whole family thought I was so weird, and to me it was just delicious.
No, it sounds good to me too. It's yeah, exactly. And now it's like, we could have that just for the heck of it and still be yummy. It's really
Yes.
our perspective of things. It truly is.
So true. And not caring about the judgment.
And not caring about the judgment. That's
That's
exactly
hard.
right. Because judgment will always be there. You
It's
don't have
available.
to worry if you put it down for a day or two, you'll always find it somewhere else to pick up. It's so
Yeah.
funny. I was thinking that yesterday out of nowhere. I don't know why this even came to my mind, but it did. It must have had a good reason. Oh, I know why it was, because everyone's putting up their holiday decorations, and I saw a couple that were depicting angels. And I thought, oh my God, as much as I work with angels and talk to others about angels, and then I have those folks periodically that pop in that are like, this isn't good, this is bad energy,
Yep. Yep.
you're
Yep.
not
Yep.
working with the right force. And I'm like, boy, it's so interesting to me how anyone could decide that based on the fact we do a lot of work with angels.
Yeah.
We really do. And if anyone follows the breadcrumbs, we'll leave it at that. So
Yeah.
it's just so funny to me. And I'm like, okay, believe and conceive whatever you wish.
Well, and it's always, when people try to save you from these things, I always sometimes just think, we gotta work on saving you first, don't you think? Do
Ah,
you do
I
you feel
know.
particularly happy? Why are you worried about my salvation?
Well,
Come on now.
exactly. I figure my salvation's in good hands. I'm not necessarily saying they're my hands, but
Nope.
I'm saying that they're in good hands. And I'm not worried and that's not arrogance. That's actually acceptance.
I agree.
I've kind of marked that off the list. At some point we have to have some form of faith. I don't care what you believe in. I just care that you believe in something. It doesn't
Well,
matter,
and
you know?
and we have a responsibility, I think, to each other to when it comes to these times and when it comes to the experiences we create around the holidays, or
Yes.
whether you believe it's paganism, whatever you believe, great. But don't unlight someone's candle. If somebody's talking to you about how excited they are about their Christmas tree and how many lights that they've got, and you start rattling off about that it's a pagan holiday, what are you there to do? What's that experience that you're trying to give to them? Like, you're just trying to make them not happy about what they just got really excited about.
Yep.
And that
I've had
doesn't
that
make you
happen.
better.
I
I
had a
hate that.
I
You can't do that to
know.
people.
I have, and for all the
Balloon
listeners,
poppers. That's what they
exactly.
are. Let's go around.
We have right now, and people are going to think I'm nuts, and I'm going to chuckle about that. Right now in the house, well, no, in the house with one outside, we have 7 Christmas trees. Okay.
That's incredible.
I know, isn't it great?
I love that.
I love Christmas trees. I love
Hell yeah.
lights. I love Christmas. I love the feeling of innocence with the holidays. And I remember, before I had 7 Christmas trees and I only had one big Christmas tree, a dear friend of mine at the time, very opinionated friend, came over and she looked at my tree, and as she was leaving, it was when she came by to say hi. She looked at it and she said, "Oh, I would not have any of that paganism in my house." Well, remember, she just had a Christmas tree the year before, but she had this new and improved way of looking at life.
Good.
And so replacing her belief system created a level of judgment, right? So when she said that and just scoffed at my tree, I thanked her. I said, "Thank you for sharing your opinion." And I made it a conscious decision that was the last time she'd ever enter my house.
There you have it. Yeah.
Not that I was punishing her. I just realized that based on that and based on a few other things, that maybe this friendship was not what I needed.
Dang. That is so, yeah. And the crazy thing is, I'm sure she probably didn't think about it again after she
I'm
left.
sure she didn't. She
But
didn't.
but she said what you needed to know.
Right. And again, obviously, something also must have led up to that type of decision making. But
Right.
hand in hand with what you just said, don't rain on someone's parade. If someone is enjoying whatever it may be, I hate candy canes, but I'll be the first one to hand them out.
Yeah.
Don't rain on other people's parade. If it makes them smile and it gives them a minute, 30 seconds of reprieve from a very difficult world, then don't steal their thunder. Let
Oh
them have
yeah.
it.
Well, my response to that would be, do you even know what a pagan is?
I
Because I
know.
guarantee you don't. I guarantee you don't.
Well,
And
that's
that's
exactly
okay.
right.
But don't brandish it like you do when you don't. And let me have my tree. I'm not
Exactly.
sacrificing anything to anything. I'm just putting presents under it. Come
Right.
on. Like, come on.
Yes.
Sorry.
I mean,
Soapbox over, but that kills me. Like, do not, even if it's true, even if you can find the textual evidence about it. And I know it is that there's things there with it, but nobody is treating it that way. Like,
no,
everyone's just trying to make their kids happy and give them a little bit of something in the tightest year ever. Like, you know what I
exactly.
mean? Come on. I don't know.
Yeah,
That just makes me
it's
sad.
wild. We live in a very, very bizarre, but again, our world, right? It's the only world we got for now.
Well, you said something earlier, and I really want to ask, and then I'll leave it alone, I promise. You were talking about the school of life. Do you believe that there are places that are way easier that we could have gone?
You
Just
mean
like
when
as far as a different plane, like a plane of existence that isn't here?
I've always felt that way, yes.
Yeah,
I feel
okay.
like
That's,
this is the world we live in,
yes.
but I feel like there's another plane, another dimension. I've always felt that.
Yeah.
And I feel that, I've never, and I'm not, wearing tinfoil hats and dressing, as a green giant. I'm just simply saying that we can't possibly believe we're the only ones.
No.
I mean, realistically, oh my God, how egotistical is that to believe that this is it?
Yeah, no. Well, I've always thought that there were, I had an assumption that there were probably easier schools, but I am curious, do you think that there are harder ones?
Sure,
Wow. Yeah.
sure.
Dang.
I love the school of life because the school of life has helped me to be exactly where I'm at today. And in many ways, in hindsight, I probably wouldn't give up a thing of it, even though it was horrible, most of it. But one thing I learned growing up, and this is going to answer that question for you too. When I was a little girl, I wasn't allowed off the property. So my world was very small. I never got to watch TV. I wasn't allowed to talk in school. So my world was very small, right? If I didn't leave the property, I didn't know much, right? And so then eventually I would go to a place that was like 6 or 8 miles away in town, they called it. And because school was just walking distance from where I was. But it was, again, I thought that was it. So when I
Yeah.
got to a level of education, back in my day, they didn't start teaching you how to read and write until you were like in second and third grade. I mean, we were a little slow.
Wow. Yeah.
But when we started looking at maps, I thought they were kidding me. I thought, you're
Wow.
kidding me. What do you mean? There isn't anything that everyone dumps off the world after they leave, my
Wow.
property
Yeah.
line. And then it got expanded by 6 to 8 miles, but that's about it. But I mean that truthfully, and I wasn't a stupid kid either. But I was shocked. I looked at a map and I thought, what is this about? What do you mean there's all these places? How did they get there? I know. Funny, isn't it? So to come from that particular upbringing, right? Because it was conformity, right? I'm told this, so I believe this.
Yeah.
I'm shown this, so I believe this. So how many things are we shown and told
Correct.
about what you just said that we adhere to? You see? So if there's something outside of my property line, which I found out I love to travel. I travel all the time.
Yeah, you do. That's a good point.
And that's for that reason. I feel like, whoa, look at this, another place to discover. But in my world, there can't possibly be a limit to just what we have.
Yeah.
Again, it's a mindset. When we are told one thing, we adhere to one thing. But then we start poking holes in it, right? And we start having what ifs. And I do feel there's a lot of what ifs. And I feel like there's a lot to be said about that.
Oh, I agree. Well, whenever you go into some of the older, like, textual stuff, they always talk about the 7 realms.
Yes.
I think there might be more reality there than we'd like to look at.
I bet there is.
But I'd be curious. But part of me also wonders, I've always thought it's a moot point regardless because we got a job to do here.
We got a job to do here. I know. And really, think about how confusing that would be if we were
so confusing.
It would be. Can you, Mom, I'll be home, but I'm in the 3rd realm right now, and I know it's a long.
It's much nicer here. Nobody gets in fights.
I'm going to stay here. It's 80 degrees here instead of snowing, okay? I went this way instead of that way.
All the guys are like, come back. You got to get back to class. No,
exactly.
I'm good.
Yeah. I love it.
I'm playing hooky.
That's right. I'm going to stay here for a while.
Well, I love you so much.
I love
I'm going to see you tomorrow.
So much.
I'm looking forward to it so much.
I am too, very much so. And I'm grateful that I didn't cough through most of this. So this is I'm thanking my guides, thanking the experience.
Yes. It was the sun.
Yes, it was the sun. That's right. Or the halo. We'll just call it the halo.
Yes, be not afraid.
Be not afraid, my dear. I love it.
Well, we have done it, and I know we got class and clients moving and
Class and
grooving.
clients today, hitting the road, baby. Because I'll tell you, last week put me down in the ground, and now I'm back on my feet.
You have class tonight?
I do. I don't even know what I'm teaching, but I'm going to figure it out pretty soon.
Well, good deal. Good deal. I love you to the moon and back.
I love you to the moon and back. And to all the other realms. See you
next week. What'd you say?
Week, and all the other realms. Now,
hey, let's go get a new realm.
Let's go find one.
Yeah.
We'll just go there temporarily.
We're running away.
Yeah, we'll go see what they know too, right?
Yeah.
I love it. Now I'll see you tomorrow for birthday.
Yay, I'm so happy.
Sophia's birthday's tomorrow. 21.
Yeah. 30, man.
Woo,
we're doing
the big
it.
3. I'm gonna make it happen. And Sophia's
and
birthday.
Taylor's turning what? He's 27?
He's turning, so I know. I have to sort it through in my head. Isn't that terrible?
He's 28. Okay,
to
cool.
be 28. So yeah. Big 3-0 and the big 2-8. We're gonna go eat some food.
I'm so excited.
Yes,
it's gonna be good.
See a lot of food. Hopefully, that's our goal.
See a lot of it. I see what you did there. So clever. I love you.
I love you too. I'll talk to you very, very, very and sooner.
Yes.